There is a precise, silent moment when the exhausting game finally comes to an end, and if you have lived through it, you know it is the most profound shift a person can ever experience. It does not usually happen with a dramatic scream or a grand cinematic confrontation, but rather feels like a light flicking on in a room that has been pitch black for years, suddenly letting you see every piece of furniture you have been tripping over for so long. This is the exact moment your nervous system finally steps out of the endless fight or flight loop, allowing you to stop reacting to the cheap baits, stop defending your character against lies you never told, and stop apologizing just for existing. Most importantly, you stop shrinking your spirit, your voice, and your presence just to make someone else feel powerful, realizing that you have been playing an exhausting role in a script you never signed up for, so you simply decide to put the script down and walk off the stage. In that newfound stillness, you find a deep clarity that is both terrifying and beautiful, realizing you do not need their validation to be real, but as much as this shift brings you peace, it brings them total panic. Narcissists monitor you like a hawk, building their entire sense of self on the assumption that you are a permanent, renewable resource to be moved, doubted, and dismantled at their whim. So when they look into your eyes and see someone steady, unreadable, and fundamentally uncontrollable, their entire world tilts as they realize they no longer hold the keys to your mind. This realization does not make them reflective, but instead makes them profoundly desperate, because what you are experiencing is the raw psychological reality of what happens when a narcissist officially loses their grip on you. For years, they relied on a specific arsenal of weapons to keep you in line, using guilt to make you stay, the cold silent treatment to make you beg, and gaslighting to make you doubt your own eyes. But eventually, those weapons lose their sharp edge. When the guilt trips start landing flat and you no longer come crawling back during their cold silences, they do not simply walk away because they are entirely incapable of that. Instead, they recalibrate as true predators of emotional energy who are exquisitely attuned to the frequency of your engagement, completely indifferent to your pain, yet pathologically obsessed with your attention. When your attention vanishes, it creates a terrifying vacuum in their fragile ego, because to a narcissist, your engagement, even when you are crying, screaming, or desperately defending yourself, is the exact fuel that keeps their false self alive. When you cut off that supply, they feel like they are emotionally starving, pushing the situation into a far more intense phase, where they realize old tricks will not work and begin plotting a final move, which is not about winning you back out of love, but a tactical strike to regain absolute dominance. They will switch their entire strategy and prepare a maneuver so sophisticated that it is designed to bypass all your new boundaries, refusing to give up until they have tried every trick to fill that vacuum using all the psychological data they have gathered about you over the years. This is the moment they become most dangerous in a psychological sense, having watched you for so long that they know your softest spots, your deepest insecurities, and the exact words that used to make you break or melt. As they prepare this move, they perform a thorough systems check on your soul, searching for any remaining crack in the door so they can play the role of a lifetime to convince you that you were wrong about them, or that you were the one failing the relationship just as they were changing. You must understand that the shift you felt was an evolution, and their next move is a desperate attempt to undo that growth and drag you back into the dark room where they control the light. Keep listening closely, because understanding this strategy is the exact key to protecting your peace for good. The final tactic in their playbook is by far the most dangerous because it does not look like an attack, but rather looks like the exact answer to your long-felt prayers. When the screaming and cold shoulders fail, they switch to a strategy of total performance, manufactured purely to keep you from walking away forever. They transform overnight into a person who appears soft, deeply reflective, and surprisingly self-aware, using your own growth, your therapy terms, and your new boundaries to mirror everything back to you with convincing precision. They sit across from you using the vocabulary of accountability and inner work, claiming they have had a major breakthrough or finally see the root of their behavior, which sounds incredibly real because they are offering the one thing you always hungered for: total safety. They create an artfully safe space where they acknowledge your specific hurts, executing a high-level maneuver designed to bypass your logic and speak straight to your empathy, weaponizing your hope and your belief in human change to pull you back into the cycle. To understand why they put on such an exhausting show, you must realize that to a narcissist, you were never just a partner, but a primary load-bearing wall in the architecture of their ego, meaning your devotion and willingness to stay beneath them form the foundation of their felt superiority. When you heal and find your strength, you destabilize their entire psychological ecosystem, becoming the most terrifying thing a narcissist can face, living evidence that they are ordinary, beatable, and capable of being outgrown. When you stop reacting, they experience a total collapse of their self-image, forced to look at their own emptiness because they cannot exist in a world where they lack power over you. This sudden transformation has nothing to do with love or missing who you are, but is entirely about restoring their internal balance during an existential panic, where they need to prove they can still manipulate your emotions and break your resolve. They would rather fake a soul and pretend to be a saint for 6 months than accept that you are no longer under their control, viewing winning you back as the ultimate proof that they remain the master of the game. However, if you stay strong and refuse to take the bait of this new persona, you will eventually witness the most revealing part of this cycle, which is the inevitable failure of their performance. Real internal change is a sustainable state of being that requires no constant effort to be decent, whereas a performance is a high-stakes, high-energy act that is incredibly exhausting to maintain, using a limited supply of willpower. As the days go by, and they realize their fake kindness has not immediately bought back your total surrender, hairline fractures will begin to show in their composure, revealing everything happening beneath the surface. Pay very close attention to these subtle shifts because they are the ultimate proof that you are dealing with a frustrated actor rather than a truly changed person. Watch for that quick flash of impatience in their eyes when you do not respond to their kindness with deep gratitude, or notice the sharp shift in their tone the second you maintain a firm boundary. If they were truly remorseful, a boundary would be met with respect, but for a narcissist, a boundary is merely an obstacle to their goal, causing the mask to slip into a sarcastic comment, a heavy sigh, or a cold look that lasts just a second too long. These small slip-ups are the truth breaking through the lie, proving that their new version is just a temporary costume put on to get what they wanted, making their frustration grow as the costume fails to work quickly. As this frustration builds, they move into the most manipulative phase of the crack-up, which is attempting to use your own strength and wisdom against you by subtly suggesting that your healthy caution is actually a mental health issue. They look at your firm boundaries and label them as rigidity, view your lack of trust as unhealed trauma or bitterness, and try to convince you that you are the one being difficult or unforgiving, attempting to pathologize your survival instincts. They want you to believe that your clarity is damaged, saying things like, "I am trying so hard to change, but your walls are so high that you are making it impossible for us to heal." But you must never fall for this ultimate gaslighting maneuver. What they call damage is actually your earned wisdom, and what they call rigidity is your self-respect. So hold on to the truth with everything you have, knowing that your refusal to be manipulated is your ultimate victory. The common mistake most people make when they finally see the truth is believing they need to have a final dramatic confrontation, feeling a burning desire to deliver a speech that makes the narcissist understand the pain they caused. You must realize that for a narcissist, drama is energy, meaning whether it is love or hate, praise or screaming, it all tastes the same to them as direct engagement. When you fight them, you are still giving them your life force, and when you explain yourself, you hand them a map of your heart that they will use to hurt you later on. The most devastating thing you can do to a narcissist is not to hate them, but to make them completely and utterly irrelevant, which is the one thing their fragile ego cannot survive. Irrelevance is the quiet, immovable realization that they no longer have a seat at the table of your life, and their opinions carry no weight, bringing true power not through loud arguments, but when their presence no longer alters your internal weather. Think about how one text message or subtle jab used to send your heart racing and cloud your entire day with anxiety, meaning you were living inside their climate, whereas your greatest victory comes when you build your own internal atmosphere. You reach a point of such profound clarity that you can interact with them if necessary, and then immediately return to your own stillness the moment they walk away, like a small ripple on a deep lake whose depths remain completely calm. They lose their status as the organizing force of your emotional world, becoming just background noise that you have learned to tune out, a loss of influence far more painful to them than any insult you could ever hurl. Every single performance they put on and every final trick they deployed was designed with one goal: to pull you back from the threshold of the new life you are building. They can sense that you are standing at a doorway looking out into a world where you do not need them to tell you who you are, but the secret you must hold close is that their plan has already failed because you are here listening to these words and knowing them as truth. You have crossed a psychological line that cannot be uncrossed. Because once you see the reality behind the illusion, the dangerous magic is gone forever, and you cannot unknow what you now see. The version of you that was vulnerable to their manipulation, living in a fog of confusion and desperate hope, no longer exists because you have evolved, and true evolution is a one-way street. You did not get this strong because it was easy, but because you were pushed into a corner where you had no choice but to metabolize your pain into pure clarity, forging a shield of wisdom out of the fire they threw at you. This is why their final move will ultimately collapse, creating an asymmetry they can never overcome, because their growth is a temporary cardboard performance, while your freedom is real, solid, and earned through genuine strength. They are working with an exhausting script while you are working with your soul, trying to manage an artificial image while you are finally living your truth, making it impossible for them to defeat someone who has already walked through the fire and come out free on the other side. You are no longer playing by their rules, and that freedom is the one thing they can never take back from you, no matter how hard they try. Their final trick was never about winning your heart, but was a desperate attempt to stop the clock on your personal evolution and pull you back into a manageable, easily dismantled version of yourself. By standing your ground, you have proven that their power was always an illusion maintained by your participation, and now that you have stopped participating, the entire structure of their control has crumbled into dust. You are no longer a mirror for their grandiosity or a sponge for their toxicity, but a person who has fully reclaimed their own narrative, standing in the light of complete independence. The path ahead may still bring occasional grief, but you are walking on solid ground, knowing your peace was conquered through sheer resilience. The true miracle happened within you, and their final trick failed because you finally chose yourself. When you choose yourself, you close the final loop that kept you trapped in their endless cycle of manipulation. That choice is not just a decision to leave. It is an act of total self-preservation that completely changes how you navigate the world around you. A narcissist relies entirely on your willingness to doubt yourself, but the moment you trust your own instincts, their entire toolkit becomes useless. They can no longer play on your sympathies or make you feel guilty for simply protecting your energy. You begin to realize that you do not owe anyone an explanation for why you choose peace over chaos, and that realization gives you a quiet strength that no performance can ever tear down. As you step forward into this new phase, you will notice how quiet your life becomes without the constant background noise of emotional drama. That quiet might feel unfamiliar or strange at first, especially if you were used to living in a state of high alert for years. But over time, that stillness becomes your sanctuary, a safe space where you can finally rebuild your life on your own terms. You begin to invest your energy back into things that actually feed your spirit, your passions, your real goals, and relationships built on mutual respect rather than control. You stop scanning every room for potential danger and start living with a deep, grounded sense of trust in your own capacity to handle whatever comes your way. The narcissist may try one last desperate attempt to reach you from afar, perhaps through mutual contacts, vague messages, or subtle indirect jabs designed to get any reaction at all. But when those attempts land on complete silence, the final connection is permanently broken. They are forced to move on, looking for someone else who has not yet seen through the game, while you remain completely unbothered in the strength of your new reality. You have reclaimed your voice, your boundaries, and your story. The chapter where they dictated your worth is officially closed, and the path ahead belongs entirely to you.